Hello, this is Gabriel, and we will now have a conversation on facilitating the conversation around the survey results. This is a team conversation, and I'm using the word conversation because it's more than a meeting. This is an ongoing conversation, which I hope the team will continue to have as it endeavors to always improve its performance, its motivation, and the well-being of its members. This is still in step 4 of the 5 steps to a successful Moti journey. So the goal number 1, the most important goal in any conversation, is to ensure and sustain trust beyond psychological safety. In this day and age, there are many reports of people burning out because they don't feel safe or comfortable in their teams or in their organizations. And that's certainly a fact, and it is probably true in the Red Cross, Red Crescent. So we want people to be psychologically safe, but we also want them to go to the edge of their comfort zones, to allow themselves to take some risks and to be bold. And for that, they need trust. They need trust from their colleagues, they need trust from their supervisor, and trust that they will not suffer ridicule in a very conservative organizational culture. So what I'm about to say is obvious. Successful teams have a high level of trust. It is because people trust that they can innovate, that they can take even some reasonable risks. In a team or in an organization where you have little trust, people end up playing it safe. They avoid blame. They cover their backside, and they will deflect any criticism for fear of being judged negatively. Lack of trust in itself creates problems within teams for the reasons I just stated. So for you, you want to see emerge some meaningful insights. And for that, everyone partaking in the conversation has to be open-minded and honest. People in the team need to trust the process. So it's not just about trusting the other participants in the conversation. It's not just about trusting you as a supervisor. It is also trusting that the process is safe, that the data is confidential, and most importantly, that the team will be able to do something with these survey results. So yes, everyone feels psychologically safe. And to do that, we'll strengthen trust with the first activities in a meeting, in any meeting. Start with activities that strengthen trust among the participants. In the previous video, we discussed using the automated team reports. That starts with, how are we doing? Give time to this exercise. Allow people to express themselves on how they are doing. Allow them to show their vulnerabilities. And as they do that, show that it is safe for them to show their vulnerabilities. So all participants need to feel safe. They need to feel that it is safe to show their vulnerabilities. Now, you have a role to play. If you're the supervisor, you will be demonstrating your leadership skills by just listening, by showing you understand, and by encouraging everyone to talk. Do not talk yourself. If you want to talk and say something, it will be to acknowledge or to show that you have understood. If you talk too much, you will be seen as being defensive. So even if you feel that some people are being unfair to you, take a deep breath, count to 10, and take it all in. this is important information that you will need to process. You will have a facilitator. This is highly recommended. So it will be the facilitator's job to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. And you might actually agree beforehand of a signal. If you lose it and start talking, he should be able to tell you to stop talking and to listen. So you need to have an idea, as does the facilitator, on whether trust is an issue in your team. So will trust be an issue in your conversation? Well, you need to know this, because as you prepare for the conversation, the intensity of the trust building activities will depend on the level of trust that existed before you start these meetings. Now, fortunately, the Moti survey results will help you assess whether trust in the team is an issue or not. So that's part of the preparation, is to start imagining what that conversation will feel like. And for that, you can actually look at the motivational outcomes in the Moti survey results and have a specific look at what we call shared values. So that is the answer to the question: the things that I value in life are very similar to the things that the team values. Have a look at the basic needs, not least autonomy. If you feel you are granted autonomy, it is likely it is because your supervisor and your organization trusts you. Look at belongingness. If you feel a strong sense of belonging to your team, it is very likely that there's a high level of trust in your team. Look at leadership. If you feel listened to, it is likely that you feel listened to because you trust your supervisor and she trusts you. Same thing for understanding. And look at rewards. Because if you feel you are fairly rewarded, it is probably because you feel your organization trusts you and is rewarding you fairly. So fairness and trust often go together. If you feel that you're not treated fairly, you might feel that you're actually not being trusted. So we have two examples. On the left, you have an example of a team of volunteers, in fact, where there's a high level of trust, and on the right, a team of employees where there's a low level of trust. And now, how do I know this? Well, first of all, because the overall motivational outcomes are higher in the team on the left than on the team in the right, but I can also just check the level of values, which is around 3.8 for this team, and it is above 4 in this team. The things that I value in life are very similar to the things that my team values. I can trust my team if we value the same thing. And how do I know they value the same thing? Well, by their behavior, not just what they say, but how they behave. As you can see, there's a strong agreement in this team and a slightly more mitigated one in this team, with some frank distrust. As I pointed out earlier, check belongingness. If you feel trusted in your team, you will belong to that team. You'll feel the belongingness. If you don't feel trusted in the team, you will not as much feel belonging. I am free to express my ideas and opinions in my volunteer activity or on my work. If I'm free to express my ideas, because I trust I will be listened to, I trust I will not be ridiculed, I will trust I will be heard, that it will make a difference. And indeed, look at the team on the right with low trust. you can see that the team members on average rate their supervisor very poorly when it comes to listening and understanding and even encouragement, contrarily to a team where there is a high level of trust. The rewards, you can see here, the rewards are very low. People feel they're not being fairly rewarded for their responsibility and for their work. That means they don't really trust their organization or their supervisor to be fair to them and to recognize their contribution. That is low trust. So what will you do if your team is the one on the right? What do you need to do? Well, first of all, you need to know what to expect. So when trust is low, expect that the participants will hesitate to talk, they'll be silent, they'll be vague, they'll be evasive, they'll have diversionary tactics, they'll change the subject, they'll be very general, very broad, they'll be passive-aggressive, especially when they are asked about their supervisor's leadership style, especially if you are in the room listening. So this is why you really need a neutral facilitator for this meeting. You need to take a back seat. You should not manage the meeting. You are there just to observe, to listen, and to learn. And it cannot be somebody from the team either. So the facilitator needs to come from the outside. They need to be trusted because they do not know the stories, the gossip. They will not be taking sides. So they can be trusted. So somebody from the outside. And again, start the conversation with activities that build trust. That really means getting people to talk about themselves and how they are outside of work, outside of the Red Cross, outside of their volunteering activity. Let them open up about what is meaningful for them in their more private lives, in their family life, or their friends, or their hobbies. See if some people can connect around these things, and then slowly inch towards the matter at hand, i.e. the team. You, the supervisor, you must stay silent, stay discreet, listen, demonstrate that you have understood, and encourage members to be honest. And when you can, use the appropriate body language. Avoid talking, because maybe just the sound of your voice might trigger some reactions. So sometimes, despite the best efforts of the facilitator, people just will not talk. And so there's a plan B here. That is for the facilitator to ask people to reflect in silence on some few statements that they have to complete. They will reflect in silence, they will write down their answers on a piece of paper or in their journal. They will not have to share their answer. It is about personal reflection. It's not about sharing just yet. And so if the conversation is about your leadership style, which has proven to be problematic, with low scores in listening and understanding, then the facilitator would ask the participants to complete the following statements on a piece of paper. I feel listened to when. I feel understood when. I feel encouraged when. In this way, the meeting participants can remind themselves that they have felt listened to, they have felt understood, and they have felt encouraged in the past. So it's not that bad. And it allows them to say something positive about your leadership style. So maybe the statement should be, if we really want to be specific, I feel listened to when my supervisor da. Maybe the facilitator can ask both questions. One to elicit a broad set of answers, another to be more specific about your leadership style. Then the facilitator compiles all the answers and can either summarize them to the group, after a tea break, or can analyze these answers alone with you. The goal here is for you to have a better understanding of your team's expectations about your behavior, your attitude, and so that you can be a little more mindful when you interact with them. Now, if despite all these efforts, you are not getting any useful insights and people are not being honest, then you might have to conclude that your team's biggest issue is lack of trust, and you will need to resolve that one way or another. So this has not happened to a Moti team yet, at least it hasn't been documented. But if that does happen to you and you come up with a plan on how to rebuild trust in your team, please let us know, and we'd be happy to do that with you and learn. In our experience, most discussions lead to concrete solutions. And these solutions, they need to be approved by all the meeting participants because everyone needs to commit to their implementation. They need to be documented so that everyone can refer to them at a later date. It's not forgotten. The solutions need to be incorporated into the plan of action and with a target. So for example, here we saw that shared values was at only 3.08. Well, make it an objective to increase shared values from 3.8 to 4.2. And you will monitor progress in shared values and the other indicators of trust with subsequent Moti surveys. Now, it does happen that some teams have high levels of trust and they are actually highly performing, these teams. So assuming that no one is lying, if you do have very good results and then your team is celebrating their team spirits, well then don't rest on your laurels. This is a perfect opportunity to bring it all to a higher level with the team. So one way of doing that is to tap into the team's energy and goodwill to enhance creativity and innovation in the team. And for that, we have a facilitator's guide. So that concludes this section on having a conversation on the Moti results and finding solutions. And the next video will be on documenting the key findings. See you then.